Diwali is definitely an interesting episode of The Office. This is the 6th episode of the 3rd season. It's directed by Miguel Arteta, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And the first thing I want to talk about is my pronunciation of Diwali. That's how they pronounce it in the episode. Growing up, or whenever we were taught it in school and things, it was always Diwali with a V. So I'm going to go with Diwali because that's what they say in the episode. I did some Googling and I'm getting mixed results, Diwali and Diwali. I apologise if I accidentally say Diwali at any point. I just wanted to explain that, so if anybody wonders, first of all, why I'm pronouncing it one way or the other, that's my very weak explanation about why I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but I'm going with Diwali because that's in the episode. And it starts off with Kelly dressing Rainn in a kurta, and I learned something. I didn't know it was called a kurta, so that's pretty cool. And she's invited everybody to a Diwali celebration. I did, as soon as I kind of saw the title for this, I did worry a little bit about Michael. And honestly, I didn't have to worry too much once the episode gets going, but to begin with, he was telling the camera what Diwali is and mimicked Kelly, and that included the words blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't the strongest start for Michael, but actually one thing's got going. I feel like he actually was quite respectful of the celebration and really got in with the culture and learned about it. We'll talk more about that when we get there. Michael actually gave Kelly a chance to talk about the celebration. She didn't actually know a lot about it, but shocker, Dwight actually did and took great pleasure in telling people about it. And then we're at the celebration, really lovely atmosphere, so many gorgeous costumes. Unfortunately, Michael and Carell both turned up in actual fancy dress because Michael thought it was a costume party. Michael didn't actually stick out too much once he got rid of his head, his second head. Carell as a cheerleader definitely kind of stuck out. But Michael, as I said, was really getting into it. He was dancing with everybody and generally having a good time, and everybody around him seemed to be having a great time. And it was a really nice atmosphere. Certain people were maybe not having fun, such as Angela, but in general, everybody seemed to have a really good time, and it was a really nice, enjoyable atmosphere, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we'll come back to something that happens with that in a little bit, something I didn't expect, but we'll come back to that in a moment. We do occasionally cut to Jim and that office. He had biked to work, and then Andy turned around to him and made my day because he says that his relationship with Karen is very much like Sam and Diane's relationship. Cheers is my happy place. Cheers is my favourite show. So the mention of Cheers definitely put a big smile on my face. If I wasn't enjoying it by that point, which I was, that definitely would have turned things around. Definitely thoroughly enjoyed that moment. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the character, but that's probably the first thing he said that I've actually really enjoyed. Well, I guess calling Jim Big Tuna, I do also kind of like. And they have to work late, so they're doing shots. They're doing shots. And this is also the first time Karen's done something that made me smile as well, actually. So we're having a bit of a turnaround here. It took a while for me to get used to certain characters, such as Michael. And then now I really like him. I'm wondering if my attitudes are shifting when it comes to Andy and Karen. And they're all doing shots, and obviously the camera's looking down the row of offices with Andy and then Jim and then Carell, and the two boys do their shots. And then we just see Karen just dumping hers into a bin, which honestly is what I would do as well. I don't drink, so it amused me quite a lot. And then they're about to leave, and we'll come back to that in a moment because the two endings, or the endings to the two parts of the narrative, are quite interesting. We're back at the Diwali celebration, and Michael takes the microphone and he proposes to Carell. Honestly, for me, it feels too much too soon, but then because I'm relatively binge watching the show in quite a short space of time, maybe it hasn't. Maybe it's been a lot longer than I'm remembering since he first met her when he bought his apartment. So, I don't know. I just felt a little bit too soon, and she doesn't say yes. She leaves, and Michael goes and sits down, and Pam texts Jim. We know it's Jim because we then see his phone beeping, and she goes and sits next to Michael, and it was a really awkward moment. I I don't love this. He leaned in to kiss her. This is obviously because he's had a lot to drink and he's feeling sorry for himself. And thankfully, Pam just moved out of the way. But I don't know what they were trying to do with that, because I didn't find it funny. I didn't really like it. And it kind of makes me feel less sorry for Michael, because obviously he's just been rejected. And I felt sorry for him. But then if he's about to go and kiss Pam, even if it's just because he's drunk, that makes me feel less sorry for him. So I don't know, I didn't like that moment. But then Pam drives Michael home, and at the same time, we see Jim getting on his bike, very, very drunk, falls into a bush, beautifully executed. And then Karen, who is of course sober because she's been dumping her shots, gives Jim a lift home. And we have the two of them, Pam and Jim, driving. Well, Karen driving and Pam driving. And it was an interesting ending. Maybe a tiny bit flat. I think I needed something. Maybe Jim looking at his phone and responding to it, or I don't know. I needed just a little tiny something else. But other than that, I thought it was a really great episode. I learned a couple of things about Diwali. I thought the atmosphere was really brilliant. And as I said, no, I still don't like Andy. I don't like Andy's personality. Maybe I'm starting to like Karen. Maybe a little bit. We'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm pleased to say that Diwali was a really interesting episode. And as is usually the case, I'm really looking forward to watching the next one.